Shabbat Shalom.
Good to see you. I was thinking about you there. I think a lot of people are virtual because of COVID, but it's nice to see you. I recognize the top half of your face.
Long time no see.
I'm going to see if we're getting like 2 more minutes, but it is 6:30, so.
It is 6:30, and I'm sure the cameras are on.
No, here, I'll double check. Let me grab a solace and we'll be right back.
Yes. Aha. Microphone. Almost starting.
Get started.
I've almost forgot the mic.
I know there's people watching at home.
Just want to make sure my mic is on.
All right.
Maybe not a good idea for me. Is that me or you?
That's me.
Okay.
Oh, somebody messed with it.
Uh-oh.
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. I'm not hearing it.
Not on either. Not mine.
Test. Test 1, 2. There we go.
Yeah, we're back.
Shabbat Shalom. Good to
Shabbat
have
shalom.
people joining us. Few people here. I know with our COVID numbers not being so hot that a lot of you, dozens of you are at home, you told me, watching safely at home, and we are glad to have you, whether here in person or at home. Thanks for joining us. We are going to start off, Cantor, by singing about how nice today is. Maya Hayom.
Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom, Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Ma yafe hayom, Shabbat Shalom, ma yafe hayom, Shabbat Shalom.
We will turn to page 142 for Shalom Aleichem. So we again welcome in Shabbat and wish everybody a peaceful Shabbat as well.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Eliyah, Melech Malachi HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Eliyah, Melech Malachi HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ay, 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 Bachem Shalom, Malachi Shalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech, Malachi Alachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni l'shalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzitechem l'shalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ay, ay, Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Amelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Page 138.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקבלה. לך דודי דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, שבת נקבלה. שם נור וסחור ודיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם גברת בלתילה. לך דודי דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נשואה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דוד
rise for as we greet Shabbat, verse 9. You may be seated. And now that we've greeted Shabbat with the welcoming of the Shabbat bride, we will also greet Shabbat by the lighting of our candles. And we think about how Shabbat is really a light in our lives, no matter what we had going on during the week or what's happening in the world. And I know it's been a rough couple of weeks for our world. Shabbat is a time for us to stop, to reflect, to be together, and to center ourselves. And the light and warmth of the candles is a reminder of all that. So I'll light the candles and we will join together in the blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik nen shel Shabbat.
Turn to page 144 for the Hatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal veyitkadash shmei rabo.
Amen.
Yalmad yivrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh. Echa yechon v'yom echon u'kayedecha beit Yisrael. Bagala uvizman kariv yimeru.
Amen.
Yehesh meraba mevarach le'alam u'lal me'almaya.
Yitbarach
ve'yishabach v'yitba'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yitala shmei dekudesha
Rehu
leila mincha birchata ve'shirata Tushbekata v'nechemata Damiran bi'alma v'imeru.
Amen. We rise for the Baruch Hu, 146. Page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, and thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons. and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are the creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening.
Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim.
150.
אהבת עולם את ישראל, עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוגיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגלה יומם ולילה. יהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Like many of you probably, I've been watching the news a lot these past couple weeks, and I know that we live in a country that is a very flawed place, as I've talked about before, but I've also felt a tremendous amount of gratitude of being able to live here as we see the struggles of people elsewhere like Afghanistan who are having to leave their homes or are desperately trying to leave their homes to get to a place of freedom. And as I watch these people gather at the airport in Kabul, desperately trying to get on planes to leave everything they know behind, but to create a better tomorrow for themselves and for their children and their future descendants. I can't help but think about our people when we left Egypt for that same reason. And so as we turn to the Micha Mocha, it's not just a prayer for us or a song commemorating the time that we all left Egypt and gained our freedom, but rather it's a call for hope, a call for action, a call for prayer, that everybody in the world will one day know that feeling as well, of being free from oppression and being able to be themselves. We turn to page 158.
Mi chamocha b'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, osef ele, nora tehilot, osef ele. Malchutecha Okay, Ayam, Livne Moshe, Miriam, Zeli, Anu, Yameru, Adonai, Imlo, Leolam, Vaed, Adonai, Imlo, Leolam, Vaed. Adonai et Yaakov, וגאלני החזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Amen. Page 160.
Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, Echamideinu shomreinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, Echamideinu shomreinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, Echamideinu shomreinu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, Echamideinu shomreinu lechaim.
We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. And with that moment of Exodus, we also finally were able to not only receive commandments and be able to observe mitzvot, but also we received finally days of rest. And so we remember really ever since then that more than the Jewish people have kept Shabbat, it's Shabbat that has kept the Jewish people. 162, Vishamru.
This beautiful melody from South Africa. I hope you enjoy it. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם לברית עולם ביני ובין ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום אשר היא שבת
We rise for Amidah, page 164.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Oh, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, גומל חסדים לטובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו ביאהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה
168.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדום מלך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue silently through the Siddur, or use this as a moment for our own thoughts and prayers and silent meditations, and when you're finished, you may be seated.
shalom bimrama, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimrama, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimrama, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu. Yaakov Yisrael, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu. Yaakov Yisrael, Ose shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu. Yaakov Yisrael, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu. Yakol yoshvei tevet, ose shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu.
This time we think of those in our community who could use a prayer of healing the mind, body, and spirit, and those who are in a period of recovery. We are on page 371, or Misha Beirach.
May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
This week we think of these members of our community and their loved ones. Avraham Shlomo ben Yochanan v'Simcha, Elchanan Yitzchak ben Shamshin Pinchas, Eliza bat Orli, Esther bat Malka, Gitalea bat Mashahana, Meir Alter ben Balis, Menachem Mendel ben Toba, Michael ben Manya, Shaul Mordechai ben Chana, Yitzhak ben Etalea, Yeshua David ben Shaul Mordechai ben Esther, Mona Asher, Maureen Berry, Kevin Bernstein, Hannah Brady, Marcia Bronsky, Denise Dobling, David Dowsett, Theo Dowsett, Evelyn Edwards, Jeremy Eckstein, Genevieve Ellsworth, Charles Frost, Will Goldman, Scott Hacking, Sharon Hobbs, Susan Horn, Sandy Kahn, Sharon Katz, Rabbi Dove Lerner, Megan Magleby, Janet Mann, Jamie Manson, Tyler Matthews, Stephen Mall, Janet Morley, Tom Nelson, Shari Pedersen, Cynthia Pepper, Gerald Rosen, Luke Rosen, Philip Rosenberg, Ina Sable, Harvey Silverstein, Penny Spector, Angela Stefani, Linda Stern, Lauren Weiss, Judy Wolf, and Vanessa Zellick. If you have a name to add when I look in your direction, you're welcome to share with us as well and to share a name from home. Joel?
The renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us sing Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
So, sorry, I don't know why this is making all that goofy noise, but I'll look into that. Let's do this instead. I had a rough experience not too long ago where I was interviewing somebody for a position for hire. And we had a couple of great candidates and for this position. And unfortunately, there was only one position for hire when we had a couple of phenomenal candidates, which meant, obviously, that one phenomenal candidate got the position and the other didn't. And I had to break the difficult news to the candidate who didn't get the position. And this candidate said to me, I really gave it my all. I tried really hard and everything. Can you give me feedback and tell me what I did wrong? What I could have done differently to have gotten the job? And that was kind of the most difficult part of the conversation, because I had to tell this candidate, honestly, you did nothing wrong. And the candidate said, well, if I did nothing wrong, then why didn't I get the position? Well, the other person was just a better fit. Well, what I could have done, I must have been able to do something better. I said, you really couldn't have. You did everything right. It just didn't work out. I'm sorry. And it was so painful to have to tell somebody who did everything right that this wasn't going to work out the way that they wanted. It would have been way easier if I had said, well, you screwed up this thing, or people weren't very impressed with this. But that wasn't the case. Now, I don't know, have you all ever experienced something like that where you did everything right and it didn't, and you even perhaps reviewed everything in hindsight 1,000 times over, and there was nothing you could have done differently, and it just didn't work out the way you wanted? I've seen people where that's happened to with health challenges or with certain opportunities. And I remember in particular, when I was applying to rabbinical school, I did my first interview at the Hebrew Union College. The person leading the tour told us, the director of admissions said, for all you future rabbis, I have some good news for you. Becoming a rabbi is a great career because there are always more positions available than there are rabbis to fill them. You'll always have a job if you're a rabbi, and since there's more positions than there are rabbis, you get to negotiate a really high salary for yourself because you're in such demand. And I thought to myself, well, this sounds pretty nice. I picked a good career path. And I applied to rabbinical school. And the year I was applying to rabbinical school, the stock market completely crashed. That was the 2008
2009 recession. And for the students that were getting ordained that year, who had heard over and over and over again how, don't worry, you'll definitely get a job. There will be 1,000 jobs waiting for you. They'll be fighting over you. Just get through school, do your 5 years of rabbinical school, and get ordained. You'll have nothing to worry about. Well, understandably, when the stock market crashed, one of the first things that people cut was their support of their synagogue. And all of a sudden, rabbis who had planned to retire that year said, I'm going to need to work another few years. And synagogues that maybe had 5 rabbis on staff said, we could really do everything we need with 4 rabbis. Everybody will just have to work a little bit harder. And most of the students that year who got ordained didn't get jobs. And I felt so badly for them because they had done everything right. They had worked hard. They had gone and lived a year in Israel. They had gone to move their families to these campuses and studied so hard for 5 years. And had these students been ordained any other year, they would have been just fine. But that was not the case this year. Through no fault of their own, they suffered. And our Torah portion this week, Ki Tavo, it talks about how if you do everything right, then you will be rewarded and you will prosper in the land of Israel. If you worship God accordingly, you will prosper. If you don't turn to false idols, you'll have abundant rain and rich soil. And if you observe the mitzvot, you will be safe and protected. And this Torah portion, in some ways, gives me comfort, and in other ways, it really is upsetting and bothersome. Because, like I said, we know that that's just not always the case. And when we look at Jewish history, and we've seen expulsion from different places and the trials and tribulations of our people, there was often a reason given by various rabbis. Oh, well, this needed to happen for this greater good to occur. Oh, this needed to happen because we had, strayed from Judaism in these various ways. And I wonder to myself, is that always the case? Was there not innocent Jewish victims in some of these places who suffered as a result of collective punishment? I mean, we see that Abraham stands up for those who he feels did nothing wrong with Sodom and Gomorrah and says, should they have to suffer when they've done nothing wrong, but because everybody else behaved poorly? Well, again, this was all part of this collective punishment for us straying from God. We really get from this week's Torah portion, being told there's even this visual representation of our people going up 2 mountains, and on one mountain saying all of the positive commandments, I think it's 258 positive commandments, the thou shalls of the Torah, and on the other mountain saying the 365 negative commandments, the thou shalt nots, and giving this visual representation of do the ones on this mountain, don't do the ones on that mountain, and if you follow these laws and behave appropriately, you'll be rewarded. And the thing that changed Jewish theology, of course, was the Holocaust. I've heard some people try and argue that there was a greater good that maybe came from the Holocaust. Like, after the Holocaust, the world recognized we needed our own state, and we had the state of Israel established. But even if you were to buy that argument, which I don't, there was so much needless suffering that occurred that really was that necessary for achieving a greater good. Or I've heard, well, the Holocaust was our punishment for us becoming secular and modern. But millions of the Jews who died were ultra-Orthodox Hasidim who followed every commandment to the T. So that can't be the case either. Maybe this was another circumstance of people who did nothing wrong and just still had to suffer. And that the world can be unjust like that. Because people can behave unjustly. And with that, this has been much on my mind the last couple weeks when we look at what's happening in Afghanistan. We've seen over the past 2 decades, people work incredibly hard to earn the freedoms that we experience daily. For women to be able to have the right to go out of their house, to go to school and read, and for people to choose their own destiny. And we see with the building of this new Afghanistan over the past 2 decades, people who stepped forward and said, I want to help, and I want to partner with America in building a better future for my country. I will be a translator. I will work on this project. I will work on that project. I am here to help and to build and to be a partner. And now some of these people are being left behind. And they're likely to die. And they're likely to lose their rights and their freedoms. And they did everything right. And so I could essentially end on that note, which is not particularly optimistic, and say the Torah's wrong. Sometimes when you do everything right, it does not work out the way the Torah says it will. You are not given the promise of prosperity which the Torah grants us. And we learn this from the youngest of ages, when we have, I'll just say an example, a child who goes to every student council meeting, who is a straight-A student, who works really hard and aspires for 4 years to be the president of her high school class, the student body president, and then gets up there and the popular kid runs against her and makes a funny speech and promises Kool-Aid in the water fountains. And she loses. We learn this our whole lives, that sometimes you do everything right and it doesn't go right. But that's not where I'll end. Because what this week's Torah portion also teaches us, which is one of the most debated topics in religion, is that we are given the gift of free will. Even if things happen beyond our control, when the Torah says, if you behave this way, you'll be rewarded, and if you behave that way, you will be punished, what the Torah is saying is that we can at times be in charge of our own destiny, or at least the destiny of our society. And this is where us as Jews need to find hope and inspiration for that. And we can do that because many of these Afghan refugees who are able to get out will be coming to our country, and many, God willing, will be coming to Utah. And what we know about refugees too, despite what you might hear from some people, is that refugees generally have lower crime rates than others, that they're hardworking people. And I don't know about you, but every store and restaurant I walk into in Utah has signs saying, hiring, we need help wanted. We could use the help here. And so perhaps for us, as the people of Israel, as Jewish people, as the recipients of the Torah, we can recognize that what has happened in this past month to the people of Afghanistan goes against the nature of what the Torah says should be happening. But as they prepare to settle in a new land, our land, we can make sure that their destiny changes. We can make sure that for those who do everything right, that they are rewarded accordingly. That is how we can fulfill the Torah. By being that promised land, by being that place of prosperity and freedom and promise for those people. And so perhaps if we open our hearts and we don't harden them, we can make that piece of the Torah, that piece of this week's Torah portion, a reality and a fulfillment for those people. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May that be God's will and our destiny.
Shabbat Shalom. There's a beautiful psalm, a psalm for this month of repentance, a psalm for Elul. And you can find it in your Siddur at the top of page 662. 662. Those of us who are lucky enough to be in our morning weekday minyan group, we've been reciting this every weekday morning, and of course it's done every day throughout this month leading into Tishrei. And the text says, "One thing I ask, only one thing I ask, do I seek, to live in the house of Adonai all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of Adonai, and to frequent God's dwelling, God's temple," all from Psalm 27. And it's based on a beautiful Israeli folk song. And I'm going to start it off with a melody that has no words. Those of you listening out there in the land of live stream and here in this space, everyone welcome to Yai Lai Lai as you get to know this beautiful melody. Yai Lai 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 Lai. Try that. Yai Lai 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 Lai. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Shiviti b'vet Adonai kol yemei Almighty, meet Adonai, Otam Rakish. Yai, lai, 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 Amen.
Before we conclude our services, I'll share some, moving to the concluding part of our service, I should say, I'll share some brief announcements. So, got a lot going on this weekend. First of all, tomorrow morning is Zoe Dubiner's bat mitzvah. That begins at 9:30. So come and cheer on Zoe, wish her mazal tov, as she's called to the Torah. That'll be wonderful. And then tomorrow evening, tomorrow night is actually, I'll be honest, not one of our highest attended services, but I hope to change that because it's actually my favorite service of the year, and that's Slichot. In case you have not experienced a Slichot service, it's really what kicks off the high holidays and is a beautiful service where we change the Torah covers, mantles to white, and the clergy dresses in their white robes. It's a service that's really very meaningful. And we're actually going to start at 8:45 p.m. tomorrow with a screening before the service of the movie Frisco Kid, starring Gene Wilder and Harrison Ford, classic movie of a rabbi from Eastern European rabbi in the days of the cowboys and saloons who makes his way out west to San Francisco. A really funny, great movie with a lot for us to reflect on about being better people and being better Jews, to be honest, before the high holidays. And then we will have a service that follows Frisco Kid tomorrow. So 8:45 p.m. tomorrow. Sunday is the first day of religious school, and we'll have a lot of great year planning of in-person classes with our students, and so please come check that out on Sunday for our first day of religious school. And after school, there will be an ice cream social on the patio too, where you can meet our many new families and eat some ice cream. So that's always good. And then that afternoon, there will be a 3rd through 8th grade party with our youth group as well. Also happening on Sunday, I want to thank the people who are here, by the way. It's great to see people in person, but we know with, unfortunately, our COVID numbers moving in the wrong direction in our state and across the country, that a lot of you who are normally here every week have been tuning in via live stream the last few weeks. And I do want to thank you for watching our service and participating from home and doing what you feel is the right choice for you. Even if you're not here in person, you are very much a part of this service too, and we're grateful for you watching. But to combat this virus, we really do need, and I'll emphatically say this, everybody who's medically able to get vaccinated. Anybody who's age 12 and older who's medically able to should be getting vaccinated. And we will have a mobile COVID vaccine clinic at our synagogue from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. this Sunday. So if you haven't been vaccinated or you haven't gotten around to it yet or something, or you know somebody who you care about who hasn't been vaccinated but maybe would if you accompanied them, bring them here on Sunday morning and they can get vaccinated, which would be really great. So those are our, and then of course, that's what's happening this weekend. Beyond that, of course, a week from Monday, rapidly approaching, is Rosh Hashanah. Erev Rosh Hashanah. We'll be live streaming our services for those who don't feel comfortable coming in person. But anybody who's vaccinated, masked, and who's either purchased a ticket or was part of the intro class this past year or has paid 25% of their dues, at least 25% of their dues for this coming year, should be able to get a ticket should you want to come in person or watch on live stream. And so please go ahead and do that. And you can stop by the office this week during our business hours to pick up a Mahsor prayer book if you are following along from home. So anyhow, you can also help us out by filling out a survey online to tell us whether or not you do plan to come in person or not, so that way we can plan accordingly and make sure we have appropriate spacing to make our services as safe as possible. So those are our main announcements. We want to thank our wonderful volunteers who've helped us out so much these past couple weeks. And following our service, if you could return your lanyards to the lobby, I'd be most grateful. All right, we are going to turn now to the Aleinu on page 586. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח באדון הכל, לתת גדולה יוצא ראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצון, אלא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, ויגר עלינו בכל המונו. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו תגובה מרוממים. הוא אלוהינו אלוהינו, אמת מלכנו ובסולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום ישיבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים עמם, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
You may be seated. And at this time we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, and those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. And this week we think of the following members of our community and their loved ones who are in the Pirish Shloshim 30-day period of mourning, or whose Yortzeit's anniversary of their passing falls this week. In the Pirish Shloshim 30-day period of mourning, we remember Leah Yufit Lifshitz, a local person in the Jewish community here in Utah, and also Ronald Stern father of Alyssa Stern-Kolb. And this week, we observe the following Yortzites, anniversary of the passing of these loved ones: Harvey Arkin, Harriet Marjorie Berry, Abraham Andy Cohen, Frida Ruth Cohn, Minnie Ellenbogen, David Fleming, Ida Gerlich, Irving Izzy Gordon, Stanley Grodnick, Lowell Norman Harris, Joseph Hartz, Ida Hess, Doris Jacobson, Annie Kaplan, Sidney Kaplan, Louis Kaufman, Rose Kaufman, Sarah Kratzer, Albert Levine, Lawrence Litwin, Philip Mednick, Clara Pepper, Amram Prero, Sarah Prero, Bernard Rose, Leah Rosen, Ernestine Rosenberg, Harry Rosenthal, Stuart J. Schornstein, Joseph Schwager, Jack Spitzer, Ralph Tannenbaum, Francis Weiss, and Herman Wenger. And if you have a name to add, I invite you to rise and to share that name with our community. Or if you're at home and wish to share a name, you may do so as well. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. If you're in mourning or it's your tradition to do so, I invite you to rise. We're on page 598. Yitkada v'kada shemei rabah, ve'alma divrach hirute v'yemlich malchute, v'chayechon uvyomechon ufchaye dehol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mivrach le'olam olmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei dekudisha brihu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbehata v'nehemata, da'amiram be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, ve'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, uyaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. May a source of peace and peace to all who are in mourning, and comfort those bereaved among us. And again we say, amen.
Amen.
As we conclude our service, we turn to page 655 at the,
Oh, okay,
Oh,
or
is
it could
that-
be there too.
oh,
It's
sorry.
both places.
I was looking here, 129, let's do that. We know it's there.
Okay,
So
for sure.
we'll turn to 129 for a beautiful love song, Dodie Lee.
This is not the traditional setting of Dodie Lee, but written by one of my wonderful cantor colleagues whose name is Stephen Scher. And the refrain is really easy to get. It comes back after every verse. So when you're ready, please sing along. And why do we choose a love song? Because Elul is all about love. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. Dodi li v'ani lo haroen b'shoshanim dodi li. Try that. Dodi li v'ani lo haroen b'shoshanim dodi li rizot olam min hamidbar rizot olam shanim dodili libavtini achoti chalam libavtini achoti Shoshanim Dodili Uri Tzafon Uvoi Teman Uri Tzafon Uvoi Teman Dodili Vanido Arae Bashoshani
We will rise for Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'rotzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'yavav v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikrahei kodesh zecher ליציאת מצרים, הבנו בחרת, יצאנו קידשת, יקמים, ושבת קודשך, ואהבה וברצון, הנחלתנו. Baruch atah Adonai, Ikadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
We will do blessing over the hall as well.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. B'te'avon. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom.
I wonder if this thing is bent or something. I have to do this before.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hello, hello. Oh, that's the home baked. He's got to get this fixed. Buzzing. Kinds of crazies. No, well, no, they're not off. I'm gonna head out.
This one's off. I didn't do anything. I didn't even do anything. I don't know what's wrong with this microphone.